Uh, Welcome to the first episode of Intellicide,
Yep,
where intelligence has been murdered.
exactly.
And we're here to try to find out who did it, who's responsible, who done it.
Yep.
So today on our first episode, actually, the first thing we're going to talk about is something that is probably on a lot of people's minds lately: masks.
Yes, that old ancient troublesome thing.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's. I read something about the 1918 pandemic that
Mm-hmm.
was talking about masks and how they had, an anti-mask league that
Mm-hmm.
got formed back then, and how it got so bad there was apparently a point in 1919 after the in the second wave of the pandemic.
Yep.
Um, so they had like one wave, and then they did all the social distancing and stuff. And then World War One ended, and all the soldiers came back. They started holding parades. Everybody kind of ended the social distancing, and they had a second surge.
Mm-hmm.
During the second surge, they started having these anti-mask league people getting all active. And apparently there was some incident where in San Francisco, a guy was out in the street, visibly sick with no mask, and a cop shot him.
Wow.
Shot him to
Wow.
death.
Yeah,
And
you should post a link to that.
the cop was never charged
Well,
with.
of course not. Right.
But I mean, that's kind of the thing is, yeah, it made me wonder, in today's day and age with stand your ground laws,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like, what happens in a stand your ground law if somebody's running around without masks, screaming at somebody, spitting at them,
Oh, you're right.
you know,
Coughing.
coughing at someone?
Right.
Would you be within your rights to defend yourself by shooting that person?
That's a very tricky question. I have no idea what would happen. We may end up seeing a case like that.
I fear we might end up seeing an example of that. Yeah. It almost, yeah. The craziness has gotten to that point.
Right.
Um, I've had conversations with people who, we've talked about this. There's the excuses for not wearing a mask are, that they can't breathe. People say, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I have a medical condition; it makes it so I can't wear a mask."
Right. That's a good
And
point.
yeah, what was it you were saying about how?
So
Yeah, a
it
doctor.
was you're right. There was a doctor, and I forget it was either Fox or our local NBC affiliate. They showed a episode of a woman at Whole Foods who was ranting and raving about, right, I have a medical excuse, medical reason not to wear a mask, and you're infringing on my freedoms. So they had a doctor who they played the clip, and then she spoke. She said that only people with severe respiratory sicknesses or illnesses like COPD or some cases of asthma should not wear a mask. She said that if someone is yelling, that they are capable of wearing a mask. And my whole thing, yes,
Mm-hmm.
we have certain freedoms here.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, you are free to not wear a mask, even though the local ordinance, because it's not a law per se. The executives in a lot of these cities, whether it be the mayor or governors or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
county officials have stated, hey, we are mandating a mask. You are free to say, nope, I'm not following those guidelines. I'm not going to wear a mask. Now, you can be fined still
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
those people that are in those positions have the ability, even though, right, legally, it's not a law, but
Mm-hmm.
they have the authority that they've been given in these court cases that, right, we're not overstepping.
Right.
And
Well, yeah. I mean,
I
so it's interesting. I did look this up a little bit. So apparently, because it is true that it's not like they didn't pass a law saying you
right.
have to wear a mask. This is based on an executive order from the governor,
Mm-hmm.
which apparently the power for that in Michigan goes back to the Emergency Powers Act from like 1946,
Mm-hmm.
where they basically give the governor a broad range of powers once they've declared an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the thing. We are in a declared emergency right now.
Right.
So her executive orders are legal. It has the weight of law, which is why the legislature is trying to pass laws to limit her power, even though she's vetoed those. But that's the whole reason that they have to pass a law, because her orders are legal.
Well,
right?
and listen, right. I understand. I might not necessarily agree with the reasoning that people are giving on why they don't want to wear a mask, but I understand.
Yeah.
Is it like I told you before? I have a heavy cloth mask, and on days like today where it's 90 degrees out here in Michigan, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Do I like wearing it? No. I'm sweaty. I'm irritated, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And that's what I don't understand. Like, you posted this link to these 8 Karens and Kens who threw huge fits. These are not children. These are adults that are going in these stores.
Yeah. Well,
yelling.
It'd be hard to tell from their behavior, but yeah.
Right. But they're yelling. One lady, like you said, she threw the groceries or items out of her cart just on the floor. Yeah. There's another one from Arizona where another lady, she's just ripping down the mask. She says, "Oh, I've been waiting for this, my entire life."
Yeah.
You've been waiting for your entire life to just throw merchandise on the floor?
You've been waiting for a pandemic specifically for masks?
Right. And like I said, these people are ranting and raving and throwing fits directed at these employees at these stores, and those employees are not the ones that have enacted those policies. It's the stores, typically the CEOs or store managers, that have issued those orders.
Well, in this case, in Michigan, it's a law.
Well, right, it's a law.
They're just complying with the law.
Exactly, but even before the governor said that it's required in indoor activities, a lot of these stores had said a mask is required.
Right.
And like we talked before, just as a store has said no shoes, no shirt, no service, no mask, no service.
Right.
That's up to that business. Now, if you don't want to go to that business and you want to go frequent a business where they're not requiring a mask, you're free to do that. But then when you end up getting sick, please blame yourself. And hey, I want to have my freedoms. Well, you have the freedom to get sick too, and heaven forbid that anyone passes, because of those bad choices.
Yeah, I mean, people have, it's become a meme on the internet where you see these collections of pictures, which it's somebody's social media post from, 4 months ago saying, oh, this virus is a hoax. And then another one saying, I'll never wear a mask. And then another one saying, like, oh, here I am at a party. Everyone's fine. There's nothing to fear. And then, like, the next two are like him saying, oh, I'm so sick. I can't believe how much this sucks. And then the next one is their obituary.
Right. Yeah.
And I've actually seen more than one of these
where
these things go around, where there's that many people who are just, in denial. They run out, they go get sick, and some percentage of them end up, passing away.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, they say masks are for, you mostly wear a mask to protect other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why other people wearing masks protects me.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not wearing a mask, they're actively going out endangering everybody else.
Right.
And they might, it's funny too, because there's a whole debate over people there's a woman I was talking to who is certain that she had it already. She claims that she tested positive for COVID and that she refuses to wear a mask. Well, she claims her antibodies make her immune for life now. She believes that. She thinks that she's immune for life now. And I've showed her multiple articles where that's just, that's not standing up. There's lots of cases of people being reinfected.
Right.
And so we don't know. Like you said before, this is all brand new. There's a lot we don't know.
Right.
And to make assumptions that you're immune only puts other people at risk. So to me, a lot of this has to do with, a lot of this has to do with society, and do you care about other people in society? And what we're finding out is there's a lot of people who just don't.
And it's funny because a lot of articles have talked about how other citizens, masked individuals, are publicly shaming these individuals to put on a mask or get out of the store, etc. You know, and we can go back to times like, you know, World War II, where you had the conservation programs, the recycling programs, etc., where, hey, we need all kinds of rubber products, steel products, you know, newspapers, recycling, all this other stuff. And if, like, right, as a citizen, you did not have to do those things, but when everybody's doing it, get in line and do what everyone else is doing. And you can say that, hey, you know, the individual is being suppressed and this and that, but I'd like to think that, hey, when it's for the community, let's all get it, you know, get behind it. On one hand, you know, people, this flag debate with, you know, Colin Kaepernick or whatever, and right now you understand, well, when an individual is doing something to that extent, he's protesting that. Yes, it might irk your sensibilities, but that issue was something that he wanted to bring attention to. These people are not protesting wearing a mask for, you know, some greater cause, like, you know, hey, wearing a mask kill, you know, 50, you know, 1,000 people or whatever. I'm not wearing a mask because of that. No, you're just not wearing a mask because it's
inconvenient.
Right.
And we can all agree. I mean, I what you're saying before, I understand people who don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to wear a mask, right? Like, this sucks. I wish this wasn't happening. Yes. Right? But it's happening. And all we can do is deal with it and try to deal with it the best way we can. And that's the problem. Is, you know, there's so many people out there who have convinced themselves that it's just not happening anymore, or that it's all a hoax, and that there's a lot of people, and I understand this, even if I don't relate to it, but there's a lot of people who want very much to just pretend that it's over and go back to normal, quote unquote. Sweden tried that, right? Sweden tried to just pretend everything's normal and act like everything's normal and go about their business. They ended up with 40% more deaths than their neighbors, and their economy still took a hit. It didn't save their economy.
Right.
So when people say that to me, like, oh, well, we just need to get back to work and reopen the economy, it's like, that's not going to save our economy, because that's not what's stopping it. Our response to the virus isn't what's causing this. The virus is the cause. And the quicker we beat that, the quicker we can get out of this.
Right.
Well, and that's one of the things that, you know, you asked me earlier, what's had my anxiety level's been a little bit high lately, because honestly, you look around at what's happening, and I would like to travel, right? I like traveling, but we're prisoners in our own country right now.
Right.
And a lot of people don't even realize that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, do you realize, like, we can't go anywhere? And they're like, oh, yeah, I know, you know, lockdown. I'm like, no. Other countries won't let us in. You literally, if your government said, yeah, you can go travel all you want right now, you could go try to buy a ticket somewhere. They're not going to let you in.
Right.
And most people don't get that. And that's the thing is, and somebody else I had a conversation with said, oh, well, you know, we'll just travel within America until that dies down. It's like, until we get a handle on the virus. And do you even see a plan to do that?
Right. Yeah.
So until there's a plan to get a handle on it, we're looking at years of not being able to travel, possibly years. I mean,
right. Yeah. You know, and it's funny because the numbers bear out that when both people are wearing a mask, the percentage of you or anyone getting infected are way down. Right. You know, one person wearing a mask, one is, and I want to say it's like, you know, maybe a 20-30%. I forget the
I want to say
30%
protection.
Yeah. So, but when you both have a mask on, it's like single digits.
Right.
Why would you not? You know, if someone said, hey, if, you know, you bet this certain amount of money, there's a 90% chance you're gonna win. Most people would say, hey, I'm gonna take that bet.
Right.
You know, not right. if you wear a mask and the other person wear a mask, it's a 90-some% chance that you won't get sick. Nah, I want my freedom, man. I don't want to wear a mask.
Yeah. So this is to the mystery, right? Who done it, right?
Well,
like here we are. We've gotten to this point. We understand like why we wear masks. We understand why people don't want to wear masks, but we understand that those from a factual, objective point of view, those people are not correct, factually correct, when they say that that they're not capable of wearing a mask, or some people make the claim that masks kill people or that they're harmful for you. They cut off your oxygen and stuff. There's no point in that. There was another video actually. I'll see if I can find the link. I'll post it in the notes for this video of a doctor who's got like an oxygen tester on his finger, and he's wearing different masks and testing, showing you the oxygen levels. And it never changes. His oxygen levels remain high, even though he's trying. I think he puts like 3 masks on at one point. And yeah, he can still breathe. He's still getting oxygen just fine. So it's, there's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of people believe. Where's this coming from?
Like, well, you want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
I honestly want to say I attribute it to the attitudes of the commander-in-chief, President Trump. And I know you can't solely put it on his shoulders, but when you have someone who is that visible in the public spectrum, basically saying, I'm not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And you have those individuals that they live and die by what he says. And that's exactly what they're doing. And now, do I think it's everybody who's a, Republican or right wing? No, I don't believe that it's all of them, but I do believe that the vast number or majority of them lean that way. And it shouldn't be a political issue. Saving people's lives should not be a political issue.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. He has not helped at all. In fact, I've been watching politics my whole life. I remember watching, the Ford Carter returns back in like 1976 or whatever the hell it was. I don't remember ever seeing any crisis where the president so openly screwed the whole thing up this badly. I've never seen any president fail at anything this badly.
Right.
Like, and I take no pleasure in saying this, right? But I mean, he downplayed the warnings. He spent months downplaying, people telling him that this is going to be really bad. And he called that a hoax. He didn't call the virus a hoax. He called the warnings about the virus a hoax. But honestly, it's just as bad.
Right.
And then, the whole thing after that, like you mentioned, to me personally, the whole thing turned with when he tweeted "liberate" to those states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and whatever it was, Minnesota, whatever. He was inciting people to, and it's what kills me is he was telling them to liberate themselves from his own guidelines.
Right.
And I don't know that it's his fault entirely, though, because there's that whole infrastructure of partisan politics, right? Now, you're right that not all Republicans are behind Trump, right? There's a contingent of the Lincoln Project Republicans who are trying to get him out.
Right.
But the rank and file cult of personality, identity politics Republicans, right? The people who grew up with that as their identity, right? They see themselves as a certain role, and they see the evil Democrats as another role because that's what the narrative they were socialized into. And I blame that socialization, right? That tells people that, their party's good, other party's evil, right? And I've been saying for a while, I think it's very cult-like in behavior. And I I'm not backing down on that now. Honestly, I see no evidence to the contrary yet. But I would like to think that we could get over this.
Well, yeah, both parties. Because I've had conversations with my right-leaning friends. One of them described the Democrats. Oh, they're evil. Their agenda's evil. And
right.
And I don't want to get into specifics, but and you know my background and how big of a part the church is with me. So I don't agree with a lot of things that some Democrats say, and I don't know if it's necessarily the Democratic Party, but I kind of try to steer away from abortion. And then, right. And then, the transgender, homosexuality thing. I don't want to legislate anything against them, but me personally, that I don't subscribe to a lot of those beliefs or whatever. I let me say this. Well, if it's wrong morally, I don't necessarily think that, like the 13th Amendment. A lot of people, want to say, oh, yeah, we have the 13th Amendment. Well, my thinking is that we shouldn't need the 13th Amendment to say that slavery is illegal. It's morally illegal because of how slavery was implemented in this country. So, doing the right thing shouldn't require a law.
Right.
But it a lot of times it does. Right. And if you treat people with respect, no matter what, and this goes to race, religion, sexuality, etc., then we don't even have to have that discussion because I'm treating you right. But we don't do that a lot of times. We we want to say, oh, I'm firing you because, we're at will state, or you came in late, 5 days, straight or whatever. And, we don't, accept that. Well, right. But that's not really the reason that you're firing them. You're firing them because, hey, maybe they complained about their manager or whatever, and it was a legitimate complaint, but it was squashed or whatever. Now you're looking for a reason to fire them.
Right. Revenge.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know, to the partisan point, it used to be a long time ago, I considered myself, and I still somewhat do, I used to describe myself as a militant centrist because I hate our two parties. I really do. I hate both of the parties. I just hate our whole, and this whole thing that kills me is that when I was young, I used to think I hated our system until I realized the political parties aren't a part of our system. Like, they're not actually enumerated anywhere in any of our documents. They're not given any rights. They're not described or defined anywhere. Right. They're not really a part of it. They grew organically around our system. Right. And Washington even, spent, it's funny, have you seen Hamilton yet? No?
No, I need to.
Yeah, it's really good. I recommend it. Okay. But it's one of those things I've been bringing up for a long time because I read them a long time ago, and they do mention them in Hamilton. He mentions it in one line that George Washington spent his retirement speeches when he was leaving office warning people about creating political parties, and specifically because of he was warning what we've seen in the last year, 6 months, right. Where he warned that people will be more loyal to the party than they are to the country or the Constitution. And that is exactly what we have today. Right. Where the Republican Party completely violated their oath of office by backing Trump and not even listening to witnesses in his impeachment hearing. That was a complete violation of their oath of office. They totally, and the Republicans know this. Right. The Lincoln Project makes a point of hammering them on that. Right. But it's true, and it's one of those things that it's the reason that I've never liked our political parties. I've voted for people of multiple parties.
Yes, same as I.
Lately, it seems like because it's gone so off the rails, I liked Barack Obama, right? I still, to this day, like Barack Obama. In fact, it's funny. You go back now and you watch Trump, and then you go back and watch Barack Obama. Barack looks so much better now than he did, even when he was president, right? Just by comparison.
Right.
And he's really a moderate, right? He's a moderate conservative. Mm-hmm. He's not really a flaming liberal. He campaigned as a progressive, but honestly, he's not that progressive.
Well, people see him as progressive because of, especially the win of, gay marriage. They see that as a progressive win.
Right. But that was a Supreme Court that gave
Right. I hear you. I'm with you. I wish that there was a centrist element to both parties now, but both parties don't have that anymore. It's the extreme. You have to believe in all of this. And it could be a laundry list of everything. You might say, well, I only like those, 3 things. Well, if you don't accept the 10, you're not us. You're a rhino. And if you don't accept this 10 on the left, then you're not a Democrat. You're just right.
No, you're right. And that's you're absolutely right. Because I'm kind of the same way, right? Like I'm not in 100% agreement with either party. However, especially nowadays, the funny part is the Republican Party has gotten so bad. Did you know that there is no Republican Party platform right now?
No, I did not know that.
Because of coronavirus, when they're having their convention, they never wrote a new platform. They're going to reuse the platform from 2016. And the funny part about that is the platform from 2016 has all this verbiage in it that criticizes the sitting president, because back then that was Obama.
Oh, well, and I don't want to spend too much time on our current president, but what's funny to me is that he continually rails against President Obama as if he's still in office and that he hasn't had 3 years to do whatever he wanted to do. I mean, this whole thing about when the pandemic was in its infancy here in the States, like January, February, he left the cupboards bare. We didn't have any ventilators and this and that. Dude, in February 2020, you had been in office for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, what do you expect, man? Like, if you came into the house, I sell you a house, and I don't have any, window treatments, I ripped out the kitchen cabinets or whatever, and then it's 3 years later, you talk about, man, this dude sold me a house, and I ain't got not a blind on it. I ain't got no place to store all my
3 years
kitchen.
later. Yeah,
like, dude, okay, you bought the house, you saw that it wasn't there, and then you didn't do anything to restore it. Like, that's on you at that point.
Yeah. I would almost say maybe a better analogy would be like you bought a house that you thought might have had a generator.
Right.
And it turns out, they took the generator with them 3 years ago.
Right.
But now 3 years later, we have a blackout, and I'm going to blame them, even though I've known for 3 years that it's been gone.
Hey, I don't understand, man. And most presidents do this. I mean, President Obama did that same thing with President Bush.
Yeah,
it's
blaming the predecessor. Yeah.
Right. All right, but I mean, you can only go so far. I've had conversations with people when President Obama was in office, and I say, President Bush started this war. Well, it's 6 years into his presidency. Why are you still blaming Bush? Okay, well, hey, right, we're 3 years in. When at what point does he start to say, yeah, that's on me, my bad?
Yeah.
And
at what point does it become his responsibility?
But it's not. I mean, come on.
But that again goes to that defensiveness, and the infrastructure around defending him goes back to the partisan politics part that I. Right. So it seems to have gotten worse lately because the partisan elements within the right now have a media ecosphere that backs them up, right? And combined that with the fact that now Americans get their information in these bubbles, where we get all our information from social media bubbles, where, you know, you only see the information on Facebook that really agrees with your pre-existing convictions. I have to go out of my way on social media to find opinions that disagree with me.
Right.
And I do. And that's funny because and then when I do that, people get mad at me because then I question them about what the things that they say. And they say, why are you even friending me if you don't agree with me?
Right.
And I say, because I don't agree with you.
Well,
I friend you specifically because I don't agree with everything you say.
Well,
but
what's funny is I used to really, when Fox News first came about, and it used to kill me that, we had, now they just call it Fox, but back in the day it was Fox News.
Well, they still have Fox News.
Well, but it wasn't anything to me that was news. It was opinion. Now, and I'm not saying that, you know, hey, you can't have opinions and editorials or whatever, but like in a newspaper, the editorial page is listed as the editorial page, so you can know this is someone's opinion.
Oh yeah.
But when you're feeding people, when you say you have a network saying Fox News, the perception is that everything on here is news, and it's not. And as bad as I thought they were, there's now info that's out there that the president is consuming and others are consuming that is 10 times worse. What's it? OAN, Breitbart, Info. I mean, the list can go on and on.
You know, it's funny. I don't know if you use Sirius XM, but it's one of those things that concerned me when I had a free trial of Sirius XM and I was flipping through the stations. Breitbart News is the official news source for their conservative XM Sirius station, right? Wow. Like you listen to the progressive station, and at the top of the hour, they have AP News. Mm-hmm. They have AP News headlines. But if you go to the conservative station, it's Breitbart. Wow. That's where they get their news. I don't know if you've ever seen the show. There was a documentary years ago that was done called Outfoxed. That was about Fox News. And they talked about actually what you were talking about. They mentioned how opinion, and I can't remember the term they used for it, but there's a term where they sprinkle opinion into a news story, right? And they even point out how this started with tabloid news shows, like Inside Edition and stuff like that, where they would have a news story, but then the anchor would read the news and then give you his opinion on it, right? Like, oh, here's a news story. That person's a lowlife. He shouldn't be doing that. And then he gives you his opinion. That started with tabloid shows. Fox took that to mainstream. Fox News was the first channel where you saw that sprinkling of opinion into the anchor, right? The news. Right. And the problem is, and this is pretty much what they detail in Anchorman 2, the movie, that it was successful. That got rating. People watched it when they do that, and because it was sensational, and so everybody started doing it, right? And what kills me is that whole myth of the liberal media. Well, because they created a conservative media, that gave rise to a market for a liberal media. There wasn't a market for it before. Nobody was out there saying, "Hey, I want news with a bias." Right.
Yeah. So. Well, you know, and this I told someone back in the day, because what I don't like now is how people are so distrusting of the media. And you look back at the history of this war on media, and it all ties back to Pat Buchanan. And you know, when Richard Nixon had a bad relationship with the media, and you know, Pat Buchanan was in his administration and basically put it out there that, hey, media bad. And that's in the 60s, that gradually people's perceptions of the media started to change.
Okay.
Because of Pat Buchanan and his war on the media.
Whatever happened to him?
He's still around, I think. Yeah. I think he's been retired, but
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because man, I remember him when he was in the media. He was like a regular on Fox News at first, and then the last time I saw him, I think he was on MSNBC.
Yeah, Pat Buchanan. Yeah, 81.
Man.
Yeah.
So he's actually younger than. No, okay.
Who, Biden?
I was gonna say, is he younger than Biden?
No, I think he's older than Biden, but not by much. I want to say Biden's what, 77?
Oh shit! Now I gotta look it up.
Yeah.
77. Yep.
Yep. So yeah, he's 4 years older than Biden.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. I'm not super pleased with the choices we have this year, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I've never, like I said before, I've never seen a president do this bad of a job. Well, I literally fear for if Donald Trump wins re-election, I honestly fear for the solvency of the union.
Mm-hmm.
I could literally see some states trying to break away because it's just gotten out of control. He can't even get a handle on a pandemic that's causing us to lose international trade, travel, tourism, billions of dollars.
Right.
And he won't even acknowledge that the problem exists.
Right.
And neither will his followers, So I can totally see if we don't have something happen that stops this, like elect somebody else, California or whoever may just decide we're not going to do it anymore.
Well, this pandemic has highlighted, a lot of shortcomings of our systems. Like there's brownouts in California a lot of times, and especially, hey, everybody, if every household is running, say their AC, dishwashers, whatever, at the same time, it's like, hey, the system can't handle that load. Same thing. There's not enough hospital beds in America for every American to be in the hospital at one time.
Right.
There's not 300 and something million hospital beds.
Right.
And I don't know what the percentage is, but like I said, we are less than, or 2%, whatever it is, 1%, 1 point something percent of positive tests. And at that point, we've already stressed the number of beds in some of these areas. Detroit was, like that a few months ago.
Yeah.
So now it's in some cities in Texas, some in Florida. Like we don't have that many people. So, and that's at 1% of the population that have tested positive. What do you think is going to happen if 10%?
Thank you. Yes. I've been trying to get other people to understand this, that the real danger of the coronavirus isn't just in getting sick. Yes, you might get sick, you might die. And people say, oh, but I'm healthy, I'm not worried about that. Okay, that's not the problem. Right. If enough people get sick, if it gets out there, and like you said, 10% of the people get sick, all the hospital beds are gone. What happens if you get in a car accident and there's no hospital beds? What happens if there's no doctors left to work on you? Yeah. What happens if you have a heart attack? And there's just no one to work on you. That's the real danger. Your whole healthcare system at that point has collapsed.
Yeah. Hey, I got in a car accident. I'm bleeding out. Hey, it's a hospital 5 minutes away. Nope, they're full. We got to send them 40 minutes away.
Right. They have an overflow. They're actually flying people out of state because they're so full. Right. Let alone worry about you. Here, maybe if you're lucky, you might get into an urgent care. Maybe.
Right. Yeah.
It's the same thing that makes me worry about really. So the solvency of actually, it's interesting you brought that up, the power system in California, because that's actually an excellent point. Because if California were to try to secede or something, they get all their power from out of state, right? Like if it weren't for the Hoover Dam, California would probably not be inhabitable. It's really a desert, that's the whole thing. California is basically a desert. And so if it weren't for AC, what are they going to do?
Well, but you can say that.
But a lot of our systems, right? So like we saw our systems for the checks and balances when it came to the impeachment. They failed.
Oh, yeah.
Right? we're watching our systems in terms of our healthcare being stressed to the point of almost failure with only one, like you said, 2% infection.
Yeah.
Where what I'm worried about is then our educational system.
Oh yeah.
Right. What happens in the fall if they try to force schools to reopen, but there's no handle on the pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
And the CDC guidelines, I mean, I don't understand how any of that's going to work, right? So how is a teacher, where are they going to get subs if a teacher has to quarantine for 14 days?
Right.
And how often do they really think that's going to, I mean, we've already seen that happens pretty regularly. When you get all those kids back into school, somebody shows up infected. Are you going to have the teacher quarantine every time that happens?
Well, right. I mean, like, you know, they'd have to start preparing now. Now, one of the, you know, things that I heard about, they said they're going to have the teachers behind plexiglass. Okay, that's the teacher. What about the kid? Like, you know, my kid's going to sit next to another kid. I mean, then that's not social distancing.
Right.
You know, they talk about the classroom sizes now. I don't see how you send all these kids back and they maintain social distancing, especially when you're trying to, you know, go from one class to the next. So, like, there's a few not high schools, but elementary schools that have been closed down in my local area. One was McGahey. My kids used to go there when they were very little. They closed that school down. What you could do is you could open up some of these schools that have been closed down and send some students there to try to, you know, lower the numbers, you know, you know, a little bit. And then you can also have where, hey, right, you're not going to school Monday through Friday. You know, hey, you students, y'all go Monday and Wednesday. These other students go Tuesday and Thursday. And, you know, so that way you could also lower the number of students that are actually in the schools to prevent potential spread that way. You can also stagger times throughout the day. So, like, you know, hey, you guys, y'all start, you know, maybe at 7 o'clock. This next class, they start at 7:30. So that way you have also less people traveling through the halls at the same time. You know, okay, right. So when this first period, you know, the red bell rings, you guys transition to your next class.
Can I nominate you for education secretary? Because you honestly have much more of a plan than Betsy DeVos does.
Oh, dude,
you've given it more thought than she has.
Listen, Betsy DeVos, right? She got that because she was a high, high donor. Right. Yeah. And then, because she had the name, but she's not qualified to, you know, she started some charter schools. That doesn't make you qualified.
She's never attended a public school. None of her children have ever attended public school. She knows as much about a public school as I know about a girl's bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never been.
Yep. Yeah. So, I've given it some thought because I have one child that's still, it's a senior year this year, man. And a lot of these kids that were in school this past year, especially the graduating seniors, like, my son, he got his report card and it just had credit received, CR on it.
Yeah. You want something funny? We got my kids' report cards back. My son's report card had someone else's name on it. Because you could tell the teacher it wasn't the report card itself. There was like a comment section where she put in a comment about how your student did, and it was literally somebody else's kid. And she just copied and pasted like the same comment into everybody's report card.
Yeah, dude, it's July. As a matter of fact, it's mid-July.
Yeah,
and any plan. School is supposed to start back in a month and a half.
Weeks. Yep.
Right. These plans need to be put into place now. We can't wait until the end of August and say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. No, we need to be implementing these plans now. And what I don't like is the politicization of kids going back to school. You're gonna withhold educational dollars if these kids don't go back to school. You know what? The parents might not send their kids back to school.
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to be happening a lot. Right. There's going to be a lot of parents who are going to realize that sending their kid to school is a vector for the virus getting into their house.
Right.
Right. And if you have a vulnerable person at home, like let's say you have grandma or grandpa at home or whatever, sending the kid to school could literally be a death sentence for them.
Yep.
And I understand the people who say, oh, the kids have to get back to school. Okay, kids need to learn, right? But, you know, challenging times call for creative solutions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think that this is a great example of a time when we can do something different. We could take advantage of the crisis to do something different for a change. I personally, I mean, I fear for my kids' education, but at the same time, I see it as an opportunity. If I want, I was talking to my wife about this. If we have to, we will keep the kids home and we will be teaching them on our off days of whatever we know, right? So my kids are going to know how to subnet. You know, by the time I'm done with them, my kids are going to know how to subnet. They're going to know how to set up a firewall. They're going to know the OSI model, you know. But I mean, that's the whole thing. You know, I will teach my kids what I know because that's all we can do. You know, I mean, it worked for thousands of years before we had a public education system here. So I guess that's what we got to go back to.
Well, like you said, you know, complex problems require, you know, possibly complex solutions. The bad thing that I believe, because it's not going to be these rich districts that, you know, are going to really pay the price. I live in a good district. Yeah, I think you live in a good school district. It's the you know, like the Detroit school system that has long had problems with budgeting and stuff like that.
Any area that's going to get hit with lower property taxes, right? And like Detroit's long had that problem specifically because of the flight out of the city to the suburbs, right? Where once the white flight happened in the 60s and 70s, then when they did school of choice, all the people who were remaining there said, well, then I'm going to send my kids to the schools that have money.
Right.
And so, so now the schools in Detroit, as far as I know, are, you know, either empty or, you know, they closed a lot of them because basically a lot of those kids are now going to other areas.
Right.
But that's the problem, right? Is that the system is set up. So like you said, the rich areas have decent schools. They don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Well, I mean, everybody has to worry about this, but it's hitting the poor areas so much harder.
Right. Right. And then that's just another hurdle that someone has to, you know, jump over to escape their current environment. Right. You know, now you're gonna ding me on education. You're gonna ding my district even more because you're withholding even more dollars, let alone the tax revenue that we get from the local population. Now the money that you give to you know, to supplement that, you're gonna hold that back. Like it doesn't make any sense, man, to me.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. All right. Well, I think we are almost out of time. This was a great first episode. So hopefully we're gonna have some guest stars. We might do some appearances on other podcasts. So keep your. This is actually our first episode of Intellicide. We are formerly GadgetCast. We did GadgetCast for years. But it honestly has been taken over on YouTube by a different channel now, and I wish those guys luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. But it's so this is our new thing, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out more of this. You know, I think you're going to see a pattern emerge if you keep watching in terms of who done it.
Yep.
So
who did it?
All right, man. Have a good day, man. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, Kyle. Take care, bro.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Signing off. Bye.